Lately, it feels like every ranked game in MLBB is either a stomp or a disaster. Teammates are overextending, objectives get ignored, and matches snowball out of control in minutes. A lot of players are asking the same question now. Is the overall skill level actually dropping, or does the game just feel way harder than it used to? Because right now, even experienced players are struggling to keep up, and something clearly feels different. Welcome back to Mobile Legends News. The current state of MLBB is faster, sharper, and far more punishing than in previous seasons. Official updates have consistently pushed quicker match pacing, stronger early game impact, and more mechanically demanding heroes and systems. Across rank, from epic to mythical glory, players are feeling that one mistake can decide the entire match. So the real question isn't just about player skill anymore, but whether the game itself has evolved into something much harder to master. To really understand whether players are getting worse in MLBB or if the game itself is getting harder, you have to separate what players feel from what has actually changed in the structure of the game. Because what most people experience in rank isn't a clean answer. It's a mix of frustration, perception bias, and real systemic evolution all stacking together at the same time. From a surface level, it's very easy to believe that players are simply worse than before. Almost every ranked season seems to repeat the same story. You see teammates overextending in side lanes without vision, missing obvious rotations before objectives, starting fights when key abilities are down, or completely ignoring map pressure until it's too late. Even in higher ranks like Mythic and above, these mistakes still show up consistently. That's where the frustration comes in, because it feels like players should know better at that level. But the important context here is that these types of mistakes are not new. What has changed is how exposed and punishable they are. In earlier seasons of MLBB, a misplay often didn't immediately decide the outcome of a game. Damage was slightly lower across the board, objective control was less snowbally, and defending bases had more breathing room. A lost fight might still give teams time to reset and stabilize. But now, that same mistake often translates directly into turret losses, jungle collapse, or instant lord pressure. The margin for error has become significantly smaller, which makes every individual mistake feel much more dramatic. This is where perception starts to shift. Players remember the worst moments far more clearly than the stable ones. A teammate dying before Lord spawns or missing a crucial retry fight stands out clearly, while clean rotations or disciplined macro play often go unnoticed. Over time, this creates a mental bias where it feels like everyone is playing worse, even if the actual overall skill distribution hasn't dramatically declined. The frustration builds not because mistakes are new, but because they are now impossible to ignore. At the same time, decision-making under pressure has become a major issue across all ranks. But again, this is tied more to pace than skill. The current environment of MLBB is significantly faster than it should be. Early game rotations matter more, jungle control swings earlier, and objective fights happen in tighter windows. Players are constantly forced into decisions with incomplete information and very little time to think. That leads to hesitation errors and rushed calls. You'll see players freezing instead of rotating, backing off when they should be contesting, or forcing fights without waiting for key cooldowns. These aren't necessarily signs of worse mechanical ability, they are signs of a game that demands faster macro thinking than ever before. The pressure compresses decision-making time, and when humans are forced to think faster than their comfort zone allows, mistakes naturally increase. This is where the second side of the argument becomes much stronger. The game itself has become harder in ways that aren't always obvious at first glance. Over time, MLBB has evolved into a much faster, more punishing experience. Time to kill is lower, meaning fights resolve almost instantly once damage connects, and burst-heavy heroes and high-mobility kits are more common, which makes positioning far more critical than ever. A single misstep in positioning is often enough to completely remove a player from a fight before their team can react. This creates a much harsher environment where mechanical mistakes are punished instantly, and even small positioning errors have high consequences. There's less room for recovery within fights, and fewer safe moments where players can correct themselves mid-engagement. On top of that, the number of system players need to track has increased significantly. It is no longer just about laning well or winning fights. Players need to constantly track jungle tempo, objective timers, rotation paths, vision control through bushes, and item power spikes across all roles. Even understanding when to show on the map versus when to stay hidden has become a core part of high-level decision-making. The game has essentially expanded the amount of information required to play correctly, while simultaneously reducing the time available to process it. When you combine faster pacing with higher information load, you get a situation where even experienced players can feel overwhelmed. This contributes heavily to the perception that everyone is underperforming, when in reality, the baseline difficulty of decision-making has increased. Matchmaking also plays a subtle but important role in this perception, because rank systems in MLBB are designed to keep queue times fast. There is often a wider spread of skill levels within the same match than players realize. This creates inconsistency, where one game feels completely unplayable due to lack of coordination, while the next feels much easier because everything lines up smoothly. That inconsistency reinforces the belief that player skill is unstable or declining, which is often just variance being amplified by matchmaking structure. Role specialization further intensifies this effect. Modern MLBB is heavily role-defined, where each position has a very specific responsibility. Junglers control tempo and objectives, roamers dictate vision and initiation, gold laners scale into late-game damage, and XP laners manage pressure and sustain. Because of this structure, one weak role can collapse an entire team's synergy. If a jungler falls behind, objective control suffers. If a roamer mispositions, vision disappears. If a core fails to scale, late-game insurance is gone. This makes individual mistakes feel far more impactful than in older metas, where roles were more flexible and teams could compensate more easily for weak links. Now, the game is less forgiving to imbalance within a team, which again reinforces the feeling that players are performing worse overall. Meta shifts also add another layer of confusion. Every patch in Mobile Legends changes what optimal play looks like. Sometimes tank-heavy metas reward slow, structured fights. Other times, assassin metas reward chaos and pickoffs. Hybrid or sustained metas introduce longer skirmishes where extended fights matter more than burst. Players who fail to adapt quickly to these shifts can appear significantly weaker, even if their fundamental skill level hasn't changed. This creates the illusion of declining skill, when what is actually happening is uneven adaptation speed across the player base. Snowball mechanics also contribute heavily to how games feel. Once a team gains early control, the ability to convert that advantage into map pressure has become much more efficient. Objectives translate faster into territory control, and losing early fights often leads to cascading disadvantages that are difficult to recover from. This reduces comeback potential compared to older versions of the game, where slower pacing allowed more stabilization. When you combine all of these factors together, a clear picture starts to emerge. It is not simply that players are getting worse, nor is it only that the game is getting harder. Instead, what is happening inside MLBB is a layered interaction between rising mechanical and macro demands, faster punishment systems, higher information complexity, and uneven adaptation across the player base. So the feeling that everyone is worse is not entirely wrong, but it is incomplete. The truth is that the game has evolved into a more demanding environment where mistakes are easier to see, harder to recover from, and more impactful than ever before. The reality inside MLBB is that both sides of the argument are playing a role at the same time. Player mistakes are definitely more noticeable, but that doesn't automatically mean overall skill has dropped. Instead, the modern version of the game is built in a way that exposes those mistakes much faster and punishes them much harder. So even if average skill hasn't changed drastically, the environment makes everything feel more intense, more inconsistent, and ultimately harder to control. Now, I want to hear from you. Do you genuinely feel like teammates in your ranked games are getting worse? Or do you think the game itself has just become more demanding over time? And what change has impacted your matches the most? Faster snowballing, tougher mechanics, or matchmaking inconsistency? Drop your experience in the comments and let's compare how rank feels right now. Till next time.